Okay, welcome to the Social Blueprint, and it's the Everybody Has a Story series. And today I'm with Eddie and Lindy Tamir. A lot of you will know the Tamir family, particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, because they're synonymous with heritage cinema experiences. If you think about the classic cinema in Elstonwick or the Randwick Ritz in Sydney, and also international film festivals like the Jewish International Film Festival, which is coming really soon. And also you must be so proud you've got two sons in the business now. Have you still got a role in the business?
Yes, our sons have really taken over like the general programming of the cinemas and the operation of the cinemas. So we're still on a high level involved in the business, about looking at other cinema opportunities. But we've also got a lot of extra time to focus on our film festivals. We run 4 film festivals, which also include a European film festival, a children's film festival, and a genre festival called Fantastic. But we have a deep passion for the Jewish Film Festival. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's part of the business and it's a for-profit, but it's a lot more than that for us, being part of the community.
Well, look, let's start back a little bit. How did you get into the cinema business? Where did it start?
Eddie gets full credit for
full credit to have brought us into a dying business that's been dying for the last 100 years, and hopefully, as I keep saying, will die for the next 100 years and keep reinventing itself as it has. So for me, I guess, just in general, the film, the performing arts has always been a thing, and worked, as a producer for a while. Went to film school at Swinburne VCA, so covered a lot of various things, and that was all after we had sold our family business, which was a petrol station and convenience store business called Delta Petroleum.
Very different.
Very different. But the film industry is so precarious, and producing and the creative artistic side is so precarious that I went back to what was not so different and said, no, let's do something that's a bit more still in the arts, still in film, but a bit more familiar. Mm-hmm. So, there was an old dirty pale blue pamphlet that had all the historic buildings that were ever cinemas in Victoria. And, I guess looked at them and ticked them off, seeing what they were: bingo halls, demolished, single screen cinemas, apartment buildings, whatever. Went around and kind of started to look at those around 1995. And lo and behold, the first one was kind of our friendly neighbourhood classic cinema, which was closed down, bankrupted, and a single screen, and the freehold was owned by the Kadima at the time. And we took the plunge and took a 1-year lease with some 5-year options and started in the film business, which we'd never done before. And just in terms of the historic thing, I suppose I, and perhaps we now, are suckers for old cinema buildings. Mm-hmm. Just the magic of an old historic building rather than a new multiplex in a regional shopping centre. In the rectangular boxes. There was something about the energy, the laughing and the crying history of an old building that always appealed to me. So we repeated that dose 4 times now with the classic, the Lido in Hawthorne, the Cameo in Belgrave, and the Randwick Ritz.
So Lindy, how did you feel when Eddie said, I'm going to get into the cinema business? Because you were doing your own thing.
Actually, I was in my own fashion business, but at that time we've had 5 children. So I was doing that mostly, and I came in later. And but I was involved all along because we made the buildings beautiful, contemporary, the architecture, the food and the drink is like so I'm proud that I had my touch on all of those things.
And the branding.
The branding, like I was really particular about doing that professionally and paying properly and doing it properly and having in-house graphic artists and and the contemporary architecture. So so it's a beautiful place, and now we've also got rooftop cinemas and jazz bars and just beautiful spaces. So I was very happy to adjust to that, doing that, and to have Eddie taking a lot of the business pressure, and to grow our big family and to contribute to the cinemas, and more as the years went on, and equally on the film festival.
One of the things I know is whenever I go to one of your cinemas, it's a beautiful experience. It is really different to anything else. And when you travel overseas and I look at what we have here, it's so starkly different. So you've done something really special.
Thanks.
I think there's a general thing about Australian cinema experience, which is a positive, energetic, invested, and more bespoke than some of the big famous cities of the world, from New York to Paris, and I'm not sure why exactly it evolved that way, but it's a very interesting, really upmarket, interesting, unique choices in the cinema experience in general, and hopefully we contribute to that point of difference.
No, I think it's pretty obvious for anyone that travels and watches movies elsewhere, even interstate. It's just so different. So I want to bring you to the whole business of movies, the business of cinema. I mean, as you said in the opening, the death of cinema has been predicted for decades. People have talked about having home cinemas being the death of cinema, back.
No, let's start with TV.
Oh, okay, let's go all the way back.
1956, start there.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
And there was a cinema in every corner next to the pubs.
Yes.
In all the suburban areas.
Yes.
And then they basically, by the mid-60s, I think, I don't know what percentage, but call it 75% of them were closed.
Really? Mm-hmm. Was that because people were seeing things in their own homes? They weren't going out as much?
Suppose. Yeah, TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was a sucker for TV, weren't you?
I heard you carried one around with you when you were little. Is that true?
Absolutely. My little
only son.
My little black and white with antenna, only child, and TV, movies, series. That was my world, and they were my, sadly, my social circle.
Not true.
No, I don't believe that. Well, people have been talking about COVID and wondering about the impact of COVID, home cinemas and streaming. I'd imagine audiences are wanting something different these days. What are you seeing that audiences want, and how has cinema changed?
There's no doubt we'd rather COVID hadn't happened and gave streaming a really big push. But we've seen something really interesting happen in the recent year and going forward. Maybe you talk to it.
Yeah. Well, just for perspective, it's not recommended for any business to be told to close for 2 years. That is not, what works for a business. So internationally, the film business till this moment, compared to 2019, is 20% down, the international box office, which is substantial for any business and is clearly the cream of the profits. Luckily, there are some nuances in there, and luckily we've been fortunate. I mean, we put a lot of effort in, and so does all our team. As Lindy said, the programming, the marketing, the architecture, the food and drink, the whatever. And we're luckily going okay. And we're kind of back to those 2019 levels. But again, it's a whole long essay, but the short of it is that 2019, Netflix had been going on already for 10 years in 2019. So it wasn't new. And 2019 happened to be the biggest box office by dollars in world history. So even though Netflix had been going for 10 years, the box office was the biggest ever in 2019. Not by admissions, that nuance, but dollars. So ticket prices keep going up, and admissions are kind of flattish. Anyway, so then obviously, as Lindy said, what happened during COVID is studios had no choice. They had to go straight to streaming, straight to in-home, because cinemas were closed. So that clearly changed habits. You know, people, I guess, you know, 50s and 60s and 70-year-olds suddenly became tech savvy and were able to work out streaming services. They didn't want to, but they just did, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that contributed to making it much more dramatic than it was in 2019. More streaming services, more tech savvy people, more people living smaller lives and going out less, even when COVID finished. All of that, you know, is true. At the same time, people were saying to us for many, many years that cinemas is definitely, you know, in trouble, because those who are regulars, which are the over 50s, 60s, 70-year-olds that went there once a week, are not doing that anymore, and the 20, 30-somethings all have ADHD, all want a 5-second, you know, 5-minute thing, want to TikTok, want to go to live music, want to drink beers. Cinema's kind of just not de rigueur. But what happened, and what is happening right now, you know, which is surprising and great, is I don't know if you're familiar with the brands A24 and Neon. They're two very cool American studios which are like lifestyle brands and are making all the cool films now, from Parasite to, you know, Smashing Machine, which is about to come out now, with The Rock. And the 20 and 30-somethings are clued into that. And one other thing is the New Zealand business Letterboxd, which I don't know if you know, it's a social media thing about people making their lists of films and sharing their lists and their reviews, and that's exploded around the world, and all the 20, 30-somethings are into that, which then brings them to retro films. They all want to see the old stuff in a cinema. Streaming may have them, may not have them, but they want the shared experience. So in cinemas like ours, you know, we pivoted really hard just post-COVID when there was no films because the studios were not producing. So that young audience is there and is very exciting, very important part of our business. I'll stop there with the essay.
I think there's something to be said for a shared experience. You know, there's one thing to be sitting there on a couch with, you know, one friend or a partner looking at something, then being in a whole room where everyone's oohing and ahhing and laughing at the same time. There's this whole, you know, thing that happens in terms of this emotional, I guess.
But the studies are showing even the 14-year-olds want to come and have that shared experience, and they do have an attention span, and they do want to put down their phones, because they did research on would you like some sessions that you can have your phones and you interact. No. You know, like, so
that's
it's
such a relief.
different to what, that's the studies are showing something different, which is
still like a quasi-sacred space.
Yes.
You know, is the womb-like darkness of the cinema, and people respect it at a level. But just on your point about, you know, you can't do it at home. So we just launched the JIFF program, JIFF 2025, with surviving Malka Leifer, and the 3 heroic sisters were there, and, you know, with Q&As and introductions. And what's amazing is after the film and the Q&As, we had a full house, you know, at the Ritz 300 people, and at the Classic 300 people. There's a standing ovation for the sisters. So it's going to stream on Stan in a couple of weeks. Don't know what it's going to be like to do a standing ovation on your own in your house and just sort of go like that, but it's slightly different perhaps.
Yes, but also it's a really interesting format because you're getting an element of live as well as the film itself, which you just don't get at home. Yeah, lovely. Now I want to talk about the Jewish International Film Festival, because I know, Lindy, you're director. When did it start and why did it start? And how has it changed?
The festival's been going before us. Also had under a different name for 30 or 35 years, and we've been running it now for 13 years. So we were one of the locations that we were running the Classic Cinemas, and the film festival was running at us, but it was getting less. It was getting softer, and there was also an Israeli film festival playing elsewhere, Palace Cinemas, and so we went to the directors of this festival and said, where are all the people? Let us take it over. Like, you know, we're going to the festivals anyway, the international. Let us do it. And they gracefully and gratefully handed it over to us. And that was a non-for-profit. By turning it into a for-profit and getting a lot of advertising behind it, and taking the attitude of there's a lot of competition in Jewish film festivals. If you think about, there's a French Jewish film in here, a German Jewish film, and other film festivals, there's a lot of competition. There's Jewish communities everywhere. So, or there's a Melbourne Film Festival that can compete with, in Sydney. So sometimes it's very difficult to get the best films. So we invested in that with money by paying well for the films, or sometimes even owning some of the films for Australia that then we'd give them, because we ran cinemas, that when we'd give them a run at the cinemas. So we really compete in quality and quantity and number of people attending, despite our small numbers of population in the Jewish community. We really compete well at just like having we won't miss a great film. We'll make sure that they're all in here. We'll fight for them all year round. Yeah, passionately, and we'll watch 300 films a year between us to come down to these 50 or 60 films. So,
I was going to ask you about that. Well, let's go back to something you said. You were talking about going to the film events, with obviously the Venice Film Festival, Cannes. I'm sure there's lots of others that you've been to, you go to. Which ones do you like to go to, and what's the vibe, and what do you get from going?
Well, the most important festival is the Cannes Film Festival in France. That's the number one. And then we go sometimes to the others. The next level is Berlin, Venice, Toronto. We haven't been there. So we won't miss Cannes, and it is the south of France.
Nice.
And we'll often go to Berlin, which is cold in February, but we'll go. And we went for the first time this year to the Venice Film Festival, and we'll get to view the films first, often with the talent right there, the directors and the actors, and And we'll go then, and we'll also go to Israel after the Cannes Film Festival, and we sit and we meet with directors and filmmakers and cinema owners, particularly at this time. Yeah, and so we've got it all covered. And around the rest of the year, we'll be chasing up other films to get the links sent to watch ourselves at home, and that's generally what we do. Yeah.
So how many movies a week do you guys watch? A lot of people have asked me to ask you this.
So now one of our sons, Benji's doing the programming. So he watches every week 3 or 4 films for general release at the cinemas, from blockbusters to art films. And we'll watch hundreds a year, 300 a year. So we're definitely there's always something that we've got to watch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll watch for this festival, and sometimes for our European Film Festival.
Yeah. So I used to do the programming for our cinemas, and Benji's been in the hot seat programming for the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. In terms of watching films, the programming JIFF is the priority in terms of film watching. Prior to that, probably a couple of films a day on average.
That's a lot of films, but we're glad you're doing it, so we don't need to.
And in Venice,
it's curated here.
And in Venice, we actually because we also run a European festival, so in Venice was perfect for us, and we probably watched 4 or 5 films a day in the market and in the festival.
Yeah.
So obviously it gets more intense when you're in a market or a festival. So
yes. Well, we've heard about the politicisation of this whole industry and what's been going on, and I know we saw here on social media and news as well that some of these events now, there's protesters. So most recently, what I found very interesting is we've obviously had a group of Hollywood actors sign up to boycott Israeli film industry. You've had this counter view of another bunch of celebrities signing up a counter letter saying that that's a wrong thing. Then you've had Paramount come out and basically say the more communication, the better. Do you think things have changed? And what's the impact? The impact to audiences, to what you see, what you hear?
There's no question, it's not just the arts, but in terms of Israeli voices, Israeli industries, there's a politicisation of all of it. Which is clearly no secret. In terms of the arts, we could already see in the last couple of years that when we were going to festivals, Israeli film and TV, in terms of pre-October 7, for the decade before that, it was a real purple patch. You know, films were being nominated for Oscars, and TV series from Tehran to Shtisel to Fauda to, you know, In Treatments, you know, anglicised version. It was like all this bubbling positive creativity. And the festivals were full of these Israeli film and TV projects. And now, not so much. So Venice was proudly, you know, used to premiere Israeli films. This year there wasn't a single Israeli filming competition. And then there's always that question that there's, you know, there's no overt, oh, we're boycotting Israeli films. So there's always this question of, is the film just not good enough for the selection committee, or is there some kind of silent boycott going on? And so no one's going to, you know, own up to the latter. So that just keeps bubbling along. In terms of the general boycott of following on those 4,000 signatures, which is obviously happening before the signatures, to raise, forget about a finished film, that's a whole other political saga, but just to raise money to make something. You know, Israel's a small country and it needs co-production funds from European countries, and that's how they got all this stuff made, and from streamers in America. And we know, anecdotally, without mentioning any names, that there are, you know, we know at least of one TV series that was a Mossad psychological thriller by a very talented writer-director that was with a streamer, and we met the filmmaker late last year, and basically was just about to go into production. It's now been shelved, or it was, for example. And so raising the funds, you know, is going to be a continuous challenge. Obviously, it's not just Israel, but Israel, you know, maybe it's particular in that the filmmaking community is left-leaning, but not just left-leaning. You could argue that they're centre-leaning and they're happy to critique the government and happy to represent minorities. And so boycotting the Israeli arts, you know, as a way to punish, you know, Israeli government for whatever one thinks should be protested. You know, the filmmakers and filmmaking community say, wrong target, inappropriate.
Yep.
And that's what Paramount picked up on. And Paramount's 1,200 signatures were saying, we need more voices than ever that reach out, foster understanding in the arts, especially with an artistic community that is generous, universal, humanist, spirited, blah, blah, blah. So it's ongoing. And then, so I mentioned Venice, the Sam Spiegel films.
No, maybe more about the sea and the Ophir Awards.
Yeah, well, there's many angles. But in the last film festival, which was Toronto, TIFF for short, there was a particular film called The Road Between Us. Not sure if you've read The Gates to Gaza by Amir Tibon, but it's about the story of Nahal Oz, and Amir Tibon is a Haaretz journalist, and him and his wife and two young daughters were in their shelter, in their ma'amad in Nahal Oz. He calls his father, who's he's a retired general, and he's called 911 by his family because he's always the problem solver, and he comes to the rescue. So it follows that journey of Noam Tibon going to rescue his family, and it's the most amazing story of bravery and good fortune. Anyway, Toronto invited the film, and then Toronto disinvited the film. Don't know if you follow the story, but the basic line from the Toronto Film Festival was, we're disinviting because there's Hamas GoPro footage, archives used in the film, and there's no rights clearance from Hamas and whoever holds the rights. So then there was a whole explosion of protest about that, and in the end it got re-invited. And it's called The Road Between Us, and it then last week only won the Best Documentary Award, Audience Award in Toronto, which is a big award, and it's a late inclusion in the JIFF program, this year, not in the printed program, but it's there, and we're really proud to be presenting that film. So I think that's, you know, an interesting story. And it takes us then to the C, as per Lindy's point. So the Ophir Awards are the Israeli Oscars. And really, I guess the case in point, and you know, it's not as if you have to, that Israeli filmmakers need to prove their diversity of opinion, because it's just there on record. But it just so happens that the Ophir Awards, the best Israeli film Oscar was given to a film called The Sea, which is about a Palestinian boy living in Ramallah who wants to go to the beach in Tel Aviv with his school bus that leaves Ramallah, and he's not allowed to for various reasons. So it tracks that story in a very humanist way, arguably balanced, because balance is a hard thing in this world in terms of narratives, but it won the award, and yeah. And we've acquired the rights, is that what you're saying? We've acquired the rights for the film, and we'll see whether we pop it in later this JIFF or whether it's going to premiere next year after it plays through, you know, because it's the Israeli Oscar nomination, therefore, for the best foreign film. So we'll see how that plays out. But I guess it's a case in point, you know, in terms of you're not really going to boycott those voices, because you've got Israeli government money going into something which the filmmakers are fighting so hard to have a diversity of voice about Israel. Is that really where you want to put your boycott and protest energy, to what end?
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people had heard about the Toronto TIFF, International Film Festival, and this backflip, but also how the public were so vocal about what have you done here, you know, based on getting the rights to GoPro film. It makes no sense. It was so obvious to so many people, and how lovely when it came back in and then it did well. Just that feels good. So what was the name of the movie, and when are people going to be able to see it?
It's called The Road Between.
The Road Between Us?
Between Us, yeah, and it's playing
multiple times.
A lot of times,
you know, at the Classic and the Ritz.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I wanted to ask you, because every time I look through the program, I want to see everything, and you can't. So whoever's writing this is fantastic. But it makes me wonder if it's a little bit like, you know, when you read a real estate blurb on a house and every house looks fantastic. If there's code words that mean certain things.
And you go in there and then the door falls off.
Yeah, you know, reignited delight, you know.
Or you read there's a film about Freud, but it's not really Freud.
Yeah. How do
it's true.
people choose? You know, can you help people choose? What
They
when you
do
see
ask
something?
us all the time. They're like, I mean, you can read the synopses and watch the trailer, but they like to shortcut and come to us. Just tell me what I should see.
No,
you know?
or you can make a private appointment with Lindy.
And she'll
give
I
you
get
a
a lot of private
consultation
appointments.
to go through the whole program. I also do that.
But
so-
it's according to the person, because there's people, I can't see any Holocaust. I can't see, you know, I want to see Holocaust. You know, like so you've really got to target it. I only want happy. I only want, which is... So...
Any standouts in particular that you just say people must see these?
Well, I'm just going to say, I'll mention a couple, but they're not necessarily what I'm telling people that they must see. I'm just going to tell you a couple of my favourites.
Even better.
So I really like this Israeli film called Pink Lady, and it's directed by Nir Bergman, and he's probably one of the most famous Israeli directors. And it's the story of a married Orthodox couple, and suddenly the wife realises that her husband's having a homosexual affair. And I just love the way this director handled the marriage in this catastrophe in a it's extremely orthodox, with an extremely orthodox couple. Yeah, the tenderness in the film, so I really, really like that. And I think I'd like to mention one French film, and it's called Once Upon My Mother. And it's a Moroccan background Jewish mother in Paris, and it's based on a true story. The son has written the story, and it's the mother's relationship with how she does everything for her son that has a physical issue to get him through life and to get him to fame. And it's just about, for me, it's about Jewish motherhood, and it's so French, and I'm just crazy about it.
It's been one of the box office hits in France this year.
Yeah. Eddie, have you got any choices for us?
Sure, plenty. Every film's a winner.
Keep it to 2.
So there's a couple. Mention Road Between Us. I'll just mention Eleanor the Great with the 91-year-old actress June Squibb, who has been nominated for an Oscar. And it's kind of, I guess, most known. It's just on release right this second in America, just been released to really good reviews. And it's directed by Scarlett Johansson, her debut feature film directorial role. And beautiful, sensitive, comedic elements about a relationship between two elderly Jewish women, very close for 12 years, living together, one dies. And it just goes into the idea that you can be so close to someone that you can actually almost take on their history and live and present your life as if you have their history. So it's a very nuanced, beautiful film. I will just mention Darkness to Light, which is Jerry Lewis, the great comedian, and he made a film which has never been seen. And it's called The Day the Clown Cried. It's called Darkness to Light, and he was ambivalent about this film because it's very edgy. He was basically in a concentration camp in the film, and he clowns and acts in a clowning way to entertain children in concentration camps. So it's got all the Jerry Lewis lovers like Martin Scorsese and Mel Brooks who talk about the film, and there's half an hour of the actual footage of the film in the documentary, and it's fascinating for Jerry Lewis fans, for Jewish film fans and general cinephiles. And I just want to touch on Australian film, if I could. So it's not just Israeli, Jewish and non-Jewish film voices that are facing a hard time presenting their films and getting their films funded. Diaspora filmmaking voices that want to have a Jewish perspective or theme are also finding it very tough, and Australia's no exception. So arguably, to raise funds from the normal circles for a Jewish themed Australian film from all the government, state, federal bodies and local distributors, not so happening. Are the films just not good enough, or is there something else going on? Anyway, we've partnered with a great guy in organisation, a guy called Jamie Beale Cower, a young producer, Jewish producer. He started the Jewish Australian Screen Fund, and together we've funded 4 world premiere Australian shorts on Jewish themes that actually have October 7th themes as their raison d'etre, and we've just watched them. They're very special, really high quality, and really proud to be part of the coalface of Jewish film production in Australia.
Oh, that's fantastic. Bringing the best of the world to us, but also fostering local talent and local stories as well. You must feel so good about it. Fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Lindy and Eddie, for being so open and candid and telling us a bit behind the scenes, what's been going on, but also about the Jewish International Film Festival. I still don't know what to see, so you didn't help. And I'm
Come to opening night. Opening night is Bad Shabbos. It's the comedy sleeper hit in America. It's been on for months, and it's fun with a bit of a genre twist and a bit of a twisted take on a family Shabbat dinner.
It actually sounds good. I've been to a couple of them. I'm sure you have too. Look, thanks again.
Thank
You've been listening to the Social Blueprint, Everybody Has a Story series. And if you want to pass this on to others, family and friends, please do. And if you want to go back into our archive, we've got over 100 different interviews for you to go through. Thanks.